For my video essay, I chose to do a compilation video of all the different scenes from the Shawshank Redemption where Morgan Freeman's character went before the jail employees to see if he could be let out on bond. This scene was kind of redone a couple times in the movie every time where he didn't get out of jail, and then finally the last one he eventually did. I chose this just because it's interesting because it's basically the same scene over and over again. They use all the same techniques, but the dialogue's different. Obviously, the outcome is different. So basically, one of the first things you'll notice about this is they're using the camera and focusing in on Morgan Freeman, and that's kind of a way of providing emphasis to him. So what they're trying to do is, as they focus in on him, he's going through why or why not he may or should get out of jail. So they're focusing in on him to basically take the audience away from the less important parts of the film. Alright, and here's the next one. The same exact thing, same entrance and everything. You notice it also has a wide lens and it looks sort of like an ensemble cast, but in all of these scenes they actually use a reverse shot where they have the camera sitting between the employees and Morgan Freeman going back and forth, back and forth. Another example of emphasis is when they're on Morgan Freeman. They have the jail guard sitting in the back, and he's less important. So what they did to create this emphasis is having Morgan Freeman in the center, once again zooming in and making him the focus rather than the jail guard. Also, you can see that with the reverse shot, there's a good flow of the camera going back and forth between all the characters. There are some awkward moments that play into the emotions of Morgan Freeman. Now we're starting with the next scene. One thing you notice too about all the jail employees is that the two on each side are actually facing away from the camera. That's to take emphasis off them, since mainly the person in the middle is the one doing the talking, this guy right here. So they zoom into him to give him emphasis and take away all the other people to make him the focus of the scene while he's talking. So it's really just a narration between him and Morgan Freeman, even though we have 5 other characters including the guard. And right here you can also see that we have good symmetry with Morgan Freeman in the middle, a little offset to the left, and then the guard without his face showing to maintain focus on Morgan Freeman. One other small detail to note from the beginning was when Morgan Freeman walked in, you notice that he had a very small chair, didn't look very comfortable, no armrests or anything. All the people that worked at the jail actually are sitting in a lot nicer chairs with armrests. This is actually something you might not notice, but it's actually something filmmakers use a lot to distinguish different characters and their roles, i.e. Morgan Freeman being a prisoner gets a not so great chair, and the people that work there actually get nicer ones, and it's something you really don't notice as much, but it does play a lot into the film and describing the characters. The other thing I noticed about all these scenes is every time there's a very large lack of motion behind the characters. I think the main reason for this is because the scene is more, at least in this case, is more about the dialogue, and it's more about Morgan Freeman's character Red's story and everything. So I think the lack of motion is basically because the motion wasn't needed, and they were trying to put more emphasis on the dialogue and the character. You notice that every scene generally plays out the same way. Eventually they focus back to Red and zoom in on him as he's giving his speech. This would be the final one. There's always a guard saying to his right in the back that that's kind of out of focus to take emphasis off of him. They always pan back to the same person who's actually doing the judging, who really is the second main character in the scene, because the other ones don't really play a part besides being there. It's interesting that all of these scenes were done exactly the same way, using exactly the same techniques. Here's a behind shot of all of the characters in the scene. This is where it differs a little bit. This is the final one where he finally gets approved and is let out of jail. And that's the main difference between this and all of the scenes. I thought most of these scenes were interesting because it was basically the same scene over again but with different dialogues, and it kind of progressed to the point to where he got out of jail.